So, we've got some great titles of things that Mr. Davis presented to me.
Aretha Franklin is sitting in her dressing room, looking very angry and not saying a word. A name on the list that she didn't agree with. She quietly shuts her makeup case, looks her assistant straight in the eye, and says, "If he sings tonight, I walk." The event was rescheduled, and fear filled the halls. Ariana didn't need a microphone to command a room, just a look, a word, and a pause. For decades, she didn't talk about the egos, backstabbing, and betrayals that happened, but in her later years, the Queen of Soul started calling people out. These weren't small fights, they were deep wounds. First on her list was Beyonce, who tried to claim her crown. Her comment at the 2008 Grammys was supposed to be a tribute and celebration of two icons sharing the stage. Beyonce took the mic to introduce the legendary Tina Turner. She called her Queen with a beaming smile and a strong presence. While everyone cheered, another queen sat quietly across the country, Aretha Franklin. To most, it was a harmless compliment, but to Aretha, who had spent over 40 years earning the title, Queen of Soul, it felt like a direct challenge. The crown wasn't just a nickname for her, it was a legacy earned through gospel roots, civil rights performances, and unmatched vocal mastery. To hear it given to someone else, even in a different genre, wasn't just careless, it was disrespectful. Within hours, Aretha made a rare public statement in which she didn't name Beyonce by name, but the tone was clear. She called the comment a cheap shot and a lapse in respect. This sent shockwaves through the music world. Some fans thought it was diva behavior, but those close to Aretha knew this was about more than ego. In a world that often tried to silence black women, Aretha fought to be heard. Now, a younger artist who had looked up to her was rewriting that story without giving her a second thought. Aretha made it clear that she wouldn't go to any more events. People who knew Beyonce wouldn't share a bill or be photographed with her, and she didn't hide the fact that Aretha called her a talented girl who forgot to curtsy. But that was just the beginning. The next person on her list wasn't just a competitor, he used to be a friend until he embarrassed her on national TV one night. Ray Charles, the duet that would never happen again. In the middle of the 1970s, the studio was full of excitement. Ariana Franklin and Ray Charles, two of the greatest soul singers of all time, were going to do a live duet that would never happen again on national TV. The network was advertising it as a historic event. Everyone was looking forward to the magic that would happen when the cameras started rolling. But when it did, something changed. Ray, the improviser, started going against the agreed-upon arrangement. He added flourishes, extended bridges, and twisted the rhythm in ways that hadn't been practiced. What was supposed to be a tight, elegant duet turned into a musical minefield. Aretha, who is a consummate professional, tried to make adjustments in real time, but the performance quickly became off balance. To an outsider, it looked like it was done on the spot, but to Aretha, it felt like it was planned ahead of time. Ray is said to have laughed with the producers and said, "She's great, but she's not quick on her feet." That one line made Aretha so angry. She had built her career on poise, control, and mastery, so to be made fun of in public, especially by someone she looked up to, was not only rude, it was embarrassing. She never performed with Ray again, not on TV, on tour, or even in private sessions, and while she never told him directly, friends say she told them he tried to turn a duet into a solo and me into his punchline. For Aretha, it wasn't just a moment of musical chaos, it was a personal betrayal. The man she had once called brother had turned her fame into a stunt, and the next musician on her list didn't use tricks, he used words that hurt. Luther Vandross, the studio fight that got ugly in the early 1980s. Aretha Franklin was getting ready for a big comeback. The Queen of Soul was ready to show the world why she was queen, and Clive Davis had just the person in mind to lead the charge. Luther Vandross is young, smart, and already making a name for himself as a producer. Vandross was known for his smooth arrangements and very good ears. At first, it looked like an electric match. Ava brought fire and Luther brought finesse, but almost right away, the sparks turned to smoke. Luther was a perfectionist who wanted every note and phrase to be sculpted to perfection. Ava, on the other hand, sang from her gut instead of a plan. At first, the tension was low, with mumbled comments and long takes, but it quickly rose. During a late-night session, Luther allegedly lost it and told Aretha, "Stop singing over the silence." "Nobody tells the Queen how to reign," Aretha told him straight on. This is how she left, she just walked out. It was finished in the end and became a hit, but the tension behind the scenes was unbearable. Every harmony hid an argument, and every take was a tug-of-war. They never worked together again, and Aretha will never forget how blunt she was in private. People outside of the music business saw the tension as just creative disagreements, but to Aretha, it was about respect and the lack of it. However, that tension was nothing compared to what came next, because the next artist didn't challenge her in the studio. Instead, he tried to erase her legacy with a single quote. Mr. Keith Richards, the guitar legend, rock icon, and constant provocateur, did an interview with Rolling Stone in 2007 that was supposed to celebrate decades of music history. But when they talked about modern soul, his answer shocked even longtime fans: soul died with Otis Redding. To some, it was just a cranky rock star clinging to the past, but to Aretha Franklin, it was an eraser, an insult to her life's work, her artistry, and it came from someone who had seen her change the genre from the front row. In a rare radio interview soon after, Aretha responded with her famous mix of grace and sting: "Some people confuse loud guitars with depth." The line, "Bless his heart," became famous, but Aretha was actually fuming behind the scenes. She felt undervalued by a man whose whole career had been built around hers, often in her shadow. She had performed longer, topped more charts, and won more Grammys than the Rolling Stones ever had, but Keith was lowering her to a footnote in the shadow of a man who had been gone for 40 years. Insiders say she wouldn't talk about the Stones at any future events, turned down all co-headlining offers, and skipped any award ceremonies where Richards was also being honored. She never shared a bill with the Stones and never mentioned his name again because to her, Aretha's legacy wasn't a game, it was something sacred that she earned and fought for. But the next artist, Dionne Warwick, tried to turn it into a game, which sparked old flames in 2017. Aretha Franklin was already sick with a disease that made her legendary strength useless. She was avoiding public appearances, saving her energy, and picking her fights carefully, but then Dionne Warwick made a news story that made her fury. Someone famous, a diva, or a veteran of the golden age said something rude at Whitney Houston's funeral. 5 years earlier she said Aretha had been expected to perform but didn't show up. What she didn't mention: Aretha had been physically unable to attend. Swollen feet, emotional exhaustion and overwhelming grief had kept her home to the world. Dionne's remark sounded like a footnote to Aretha. It was a slap. She stayed quiet at the time, but years later in 2017 she released a 5-page letter to the Associated Press, something she almost never did. The letter didn't hold back. She accused Dionne of blatant lies, of manufacturing drama, and of using a sacred event to stir gossip. It wasn't out of the blue. The feud between these two icons had simmered for decades. Quiet jabs, backstage tension, cold shoulders at tributes, but Aretha had reached her breaking point. She closed the letter with a single sentence that made headlines across the industry: Dionne knows what she did. No further comment, no clarification, just a velvet-gloved dagger. After that, the feud was officially buried, not with forgiveness but with finality. Because when Aretha said she was done, she meant it, and the next name on her list, he didn't cross her at a funeral, he crossed her on her own turf. Detroit. Eminem, the boy from the neighborhood who didn't care. Aretha Franklin wasn't just from Detroit, she was Detroit's churches, record stores, and soul clubs. Her voice rose from the city's streets and became its heartbeat, and she represented her hometown all over the world by hosting benefit concerts and mentoring young artists. So when Eminem took the world by storm in the early 2000s, becoming the face of Detroit for a new generation, Aretha expected at least a nod, a name drop, a sample, something, but it never came. In song after song, Eminem referred to hip-hop legends, rock stars, and even fellow Detroit natives, but never Aretha. To his fans, it seemed like an innocent omission, but to Aretha, it was a huge disappointment. She had broken down barriers in an industry that wasn't built for her, and she paved the way not only for women but for all artists who came out of Detroit with something to prove, including him. At one private dinner, someone brought up Eminem's rise. Aretha is said to have leaned back, shook her head, and said, "He knows who I am, he just chose not to care." In later interviews, she was asked what she thought of his lyrics. She gave a one-word answer that said it all: noise. There was no fight, no public drama, just a quiet permanent freeze. Because if Aretha blessed you, it meant something, and if she didn't, it also meant something. But the ultimate betrayal didn't come from a rock star or a rapper, it came from a man with a piano and a smile. Franklin had admired Billy Joel's songwriting, ability to command a crowd, and genuine love for musical heritage for a long time. He was one of the few modern artists she thought had a deep respect for the classics and the legends who came before him, so when the idea of a joint concert arose in the early 2000s, Aretha was interested. It was billed as a celebration of piano-driven soul and pop, a meeting of two musical titans. She agreed to an initial rehearsal, cautiously hoping that the chemistry would click. It didn't. From the start, something didn't feel right. Billy was friendly but too casual, and his jokes tended toward the condescending. During a short break, he reportedly laughed and said, "Come on loosen up, take a shot of whiskey and lighten the mood." Aretha had never drank. She had spent her whole career holding her own without ever losing her edge. The comment wasn't just rude, it was insulting. She got up, quietly packed her things, and left the rehearsal. There was no yelling or a dramatic exit, there was only silence and the sound of the piano lid slamming. Later that week, a close friend heard her say, "He plays the piano like a poet but talks like a fool." The concert was quietly cancelled, no press release, no follow-up, and from that day on Billy Joel's name disappeared from her orbit. No invitations, no duets, no mutual appearances, because to Aretha, respect was the music behind the music, and once that was gone, so was the relationship. Why Aretha stayed silent until now. For decades Aretha Franklin let the music speak. She was the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the voice behind Respect, Natural Woman, and Chain of Fools. But behind every high note was a story, a conflict, a silence she chose to keep until now, because at 76, with the end near and the crown still firmly in place, Aretha decided to tell the truth, not for revenge but for clarity, because even queens bleed, even legends get burned, and sometimes the most powerful anthem is finally saying the names out loud. Which name shocked you the most, and do you think Aretha was right to hold these grudges, or were they just the cost of greatness? Please let us know below. The queen may be dead, but her voice still means a lot. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories.